1 point needed for Jordan. Michael Jordan, the 4th player in NBA history to get 30,000 points for his career.
Center field, the Diamondbacks are world champions.
And Drew Bledsoe is on the sideline.
Tom Brady, the second-year quarterback from the University of Michigan.
This amazing little device holds 1,000 songs, and it goes right in my pocket.
We're unveiling the Xbox. This is the product that will be out later this year.
But the SEC is now investigating Enron's accounting procedures after the company admitted it inflated earnings by more than $500 million and hit another $500 million in debt off its books.
I think it would be very difficult for anyone to save Enron at this point.
I will take the ring to Mordor.
Mamma mia!
Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. A film that launched one of the most successful cinematic franchises of all time, and helped to teach illiterate children the satanic art of witchcraft, as well as the proper English word for sorcerer, which is apparently philosopher. Hi there friends, back again! And you may not know this about me, but I used to be quite the Potterhead. I mean, I wasn't a cosplayer or fanfic writer. And I didn't adopt the metric system like some uncultured heathen. But I have read through those HP books about half a dozen times and long ago lost count of the number of watches I've given the films. And though they never rose to the level of being personal favorites, I did and still do unabashedly enjoy this series. And with the TV adaptation looming on the horizon, please be good, I think now's a good time to talk about the saga. Beginning with movie 1. So, grab your wand and or broomstick. No, wait, that sounds dirty. Hop on to the Hogwarts Express with me as we take this trip down memory lane.
Let the feast begin.
Sorcerer's Philosophical Stone opens on Halloween night in a quiet neighborhood with a Magic the Gathering cosplayer named Albus Dumbledore, performing the film's first demonstration of the supernatural. One might say it's delightful, but that would be a terrible pun, and I've never been known to indulge in those. Liar! A nearby cat gives a little meow before transforming into a bespectacled little hottie named Professor McGonagall.
Elf.
In real life, she was called Dame Maggie Smith. Informally, I called her Damn Maggie Smith because my kink is texture.
What is wrong with you?
Moments later, they're joined by an enormous fellow called Hagrid on a flying motorbike with a baby in tow. He's enormously tall with a
great big bushy beard
and is wearing the kind of coat you'd see on someone about to perform an old-school gender reveal. Though no worries here, as we're spared the sight of Hagrid's wand, as he keeps his in an umbrella. The odd trio carries the newborn over to the house of his aunt and uncle, and I have to say, this is probably the most advanced method of leaving a sack of poop on someone's doorstep. That thing refills on its own. And while it's probably not the safest thing to leave a baby outdoors and unsupervised for hours on end, it's really worth it for the lulz of this epic Halloween prank. The older man says,
"Good luck, Harry Potter."
And a close-up reveals the child has a cut on his forehead. I get the sense that whoever harmed him thought he was black.
Never do such a thing.
All jokes and safety concerns aside, this opening is a pretty strong tone setter. It sets up both a whimsical and mysterious atmosphere while establishing the importance of the child, even if he's left to sleepily wallow in his own filth overnight. In London. in October.
Technically, I'm homeless.
Bundle up, champ. Fast forward a decade and we see the boy who lived living the high life inside of the equivalent of a $3,500 per month New York City apartment. He's awakened by his cousin Dudley disrupting the Richter scale, then invited to cook for him on his birthday. As they're ready for a family outing, his Uncle Vernon warns him that any funny business will result in him not eating for a week. And by the looks of it, those uneaten meals have been shared by father and son, and I'm pretty sure that Harry is a repeat offender. They visit the zoo, and Harry strikes up a conversation with a surprisingly receptive snake. The sight of this excites his ample cousin, who leans on the terrarium glass and falls in as the barrier vanishes, seemingly at Harry's will. The little monster laughs as the reptile escapes, and we hear screaming in the background. So we can only assume it's making a meal of some of those patrons. Definitely eating better than Harry, as Vernon blames his nephew for the near miss, so the little fatty will be missing out on birthday cake. Now, I don't know if you've picked up on the subtle hints the film has dropped since we picked up with present-day Harry, but it appears his aunt and uncle were none too appreciative of the little financial burden that was dropped in their laps. And it's probably no help that he grew up to be a nerd with occasional bouts of demonic powers. Sometime later, Harry receives the mail and is surprised to see a letter addressed to him. Cousin Dudley snatches it away to show his parents, and they are disturbed to see the word Hogwarts stamped on the back, which I'm pretty sure is some kind of cult or STD. The message is withheld from him, and for days on end there are attempts to deliver Harry this letter by these little hooters. Seriously, this is like a scene from The Birds if it were made by and about Amazon and their obsessive focus on customer service. And it's a fun little coincidence that this would be an adaptation based on the film by Alfred Hitchcock. The Dursleys flee to a piece of beachfront property, and instead of saying thank you for upgrading his living situation again, all Harry can do is mope about how no one is celebrating his birthday as the clock strikes midnight. What a diva. Maybe he should cry to his mom about it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. Your mother is dead. I'm sorry, that was 100% inappropriate.
He gets his wish as the door suddenly bursts open and awakens his family, and in walks Hagrid with a birthday cake and an invitation. After lighting a fire with his umbrella, he tells Harry that he's actually a wizard and that Hogwarts is a school that will teach him to hone his magical powers. Uncle Vernon protests while his Aunt Petunia admits that Harry's mom was a witch too and got a similar letter when she was a kid. Also, he is told his parents were murdered after long believing they had died in a car crash. Hagrid then introduces the audience to the wizarding world's most prominent slur.
Muggle.
Non-magic folk.
Then, after giving one such muggle a pigtail, Hagrid and Harry leave. Remember, kids, not only can you trust a racist stranger, you should leave with them when they ask because they might take you somewhere cool like a shop or a dungeon. Though they go to a bar, and Harry is surprised to learn that its patrons all know him once Hagrid speaks his name. Many even come over to shake his hand, including someone named Quirrell, who looks like he probably isn't allowed within 500 yards of a school. Naturally, he's a Hogwarts teacher.
Pedophile!
Hagrid then escorts Harry behind the bar where he opens up the magical doorway to a place called Diagon Alley, where he'll be able to buy all of his school supplies. If you've ever been to Tennessee, it's not unlike Gatlinburg. Or if you've ever been to Orlando, it's a lot like the wizarding world of Harry Potter. They head over to Gringotts, the wizard bank, which is run by greedy goblins with big pointy noses, and oy vey, I wonder what JK was trying to say with this creative choice.
Are we talking about the same Jews?
After riding down to a vault, Harry learns that his parents left him a small fortune. Being famous and magical on top of this, I think it's possible he's the most privileged human being in cinema history. Also, he's white, so another win.
He did not.
For comparison, all Hagrid has in his vault is a small rock wrapped in a piece of paper, which he quickly withdraws, so times must be tough for the hefty lad. Harry is next dropped off with an old man named Ollivander, who lets Harry fiddle with his sticks. Sorry, he allows Harry to handle his wood.
No, definitely not.
He hands Harry various wands and waits for one to choose him. Was that better? He's given all 11 inches of nice firm holly, and Ollivander tells him that the bird which provided the core gave one other feather to the wand that gave Harry his scar. Wow, the wizard with a wand of holly wood is famous?
That's amazing. Isn't that like amazing?
Much like with the bankers at Gringotts, I think JK is being a bit on the nose. Then again, the person who gave Harry the scar doesn't have a nose, so it sort of evens out. From the delivery owls to the granting of his wand, Harry's introduction to the world of magic he was born into provides some strong and entertaining world building. It also does a really good job of acquainting our main character to one of the more lovable people he'll come to know. Hagrid's fine too. Later that evening, the large fellow tells Harry about a man named Voldemort, the person who killed his parents and used to terrorize the magical community, as well as giving Harry his scar. Harry is famous because as a baby he survived an attempted murder, and this failure apparently caused Voldemort to retire in shame. Also, he was sprayed in the face with a love spell or something, and I think that's supposed to explain how he lost his nose. Personally, I like a woman with a potent love spray. The following day, Harry is taken to the train station and is told to go to platform 9 3/4, which confuses the lad because he doesn't understand fractions. A truly searing critique by Rowling on the English educational system. He eventually overhears the Muggle slur again, and it leads him to a family of magical gingers named the Weasleys. Harry approaches and asks for their help, and they tell him to go run into a wall, which turns out to be far more helpful than that same instruction would be in real life. He gets onto the train and is eventually joined by Ron, the youngest son of the Weasley family. A trolley comes down the aisle, and Harry buys all of the sweets to flex his wealth and establish dominance over his poverty-stricken new friend. Trying to recover some dignity, Ron decides to show Harry how to turn a rat yellow, but they are interrupted by a girl named Hermione, who is immediately interested in the magical demonstration. The spell doesn't work, and the girl sits down opposite Harry and performs one of her own, thus establishing her dominance and lowering the ginger further down the social hierarchy, just where redheads belong. They arrive at Hogwarts, and after being greeted by the ever-tantalizing Professor McGonagall, our titular character comes face to face with Draco Malfoy, who looks a bit like Kevin McAllister from Home Alone if you just added grease. He offers to help Harry avoid the wrong sort of wizards, but Harry says he can spot redheads just fine. Speaking of sorting, it is just after this that the children are brought into the main hall to be segregated according to their character, just like Martin Luther King Jr. always dreamed. And it's done at the behest of a pointy hat, also like MLK dreamed. Before the sorting ceremony, the headmaster Albus Dumbledore gives a warning that students are to avoid the Forbidden Forest and that the third-floor corridor is out of bounds.
To everyone who does not wish to die a most painful death.
Next, the sorting begins where brave children are assigned to House Gryffindor, while rich and cool kids like Draco get to go with House Slytherin. Ravenclaw is for the smart little ones, though we don't see anyone picked for that house, so it must have been a slow year. And finally, there's Hufflepuff, the house equivalent of the checkbox labeled Other. After Harry gets a creepy look from a teacher who gives the word slither in a whole new meaning, he puts on the sorting hat and is told he could be in that house, but decides he'd rather be brave and cool. Once this is over, the children are treated to a feast which appears magically in front of them, and it's worth noting that if you read the books, you learn that the food is provided by creatures called house elves who are basically happy slaves. I can actually think of another kind of happy slave who also had the word house in their title, and again, I'm wondering what JK was trying to tell us here. Harry and Ron go to their classes the next day, starting with Transfiguration. A cat is on the desk waiting for them, which suddenly transforms into the bespectacled beauty. My wand is out and ready. Next on the class schedule is Potions with Professor Snape, and hey, it's him? Where's the melanin? I don't care what they told you in the books.
Severus Snape was black.
He quizzes Harry, who proves to be woefully ignorant on the subject. Once again, a harsh commentary on English education.
Because they're stupid.
I have to give this movie a good deal of credit for how it continues to establish the wizarding world, and more specifically, Hogwarts. It does a pretty excellent job of displaying the imagination and whimsy that went into its creation, gives the setting a great deal of character and immersive qualities, and then gets the viewer familiar with the day-to-day routines the students will follow on top top of introducing character dynamics between Harry and various individuals.
Ah, good stuff, good stuff.
During their lunch period, Harry reads the newspaper while the non-orphans receive mail from people who love them. He notices a story that says someone tried to break into the same vault Hagrid showed Harry earlier in the movie. I imagine breaking into an empty bank vault would fill me with a mixture of frustration and sympathy at the same time. It sucks not bringing home any booty, but pretty sad that your victim has none to begin with. Back to the classes, the next lesson is held outdoors where Harry learns to fly on a broomstick, which he takes to rather quickly. Hermione struggles with it because she's a girl and is supposed to be holding the broom a different way, and Ron does as well because, well, he's a failure. A kid named Neville Longbottom is injured after attempting a mid-air dismount, and as the teacher takes him to the hospital wing, she tells her students they'll be expelled if they do any flying while she's gone. Draco picks up an object Neville dropped and taunts Harry by taking it up into the air. Harry follows after him and demands to have it back. After Draco's superb delivery of the Burger King slogan,
"Have it your way then,"
Harry races after the object and catches it rather spectacularly in front of Professor McGonagall's window. If I had a broom that flew, that's precisely where I'd be hovering as well. She comes outside to administer discipline and tells Harry to follow behind her. They go to Professor Quirrell's class and she asks to borrow wood.
Wood.
Discipline, a view of McGonagall's backside, and she wants wood. I have never been more envious in my entire life. Harry's punishment is that he's forced to play outdoor sports for his house's Quidditch team and is the first-year student to have to do this in a century. Later that evening, Harry, Ron, and Hermione take a detour while heading back to their common room and end up in a room with a deformed but adorable doggo with 3 heads. They get away and Hermione notes that the creature was guarding a door beneath its feet. The next day, Harry goes with Oliver Wood, the Gryffindor Quidditch captain, to learn about the sport. Not knowing much about Quidditch myself, my research led me down a very dark rabbit hole of internet searches. Please steer clear of related search terms such as beaters, the golden snatch, and blue quaffle.
That's horrible.
Following the lesson, a tiny teacher shows the students how to make objects float, which you'd think would come easily to Harry since he flies so well. Hermione masters the spell almost immediately, so Harry and Ron apply bro code and shun her for being a nerd. After a breathtaking shot of pumpkins rightfully hovering over all living things as they should, Harry and Ron learn Hermione is crying in the girls' bathroom as the rest of the school enjoys the Halloween feast, proving the power and necessity of shame. The party soon interrupted as Professor Quirrell rushes into the Great Hall and shouts about a troll in the dungeon before fainting. Everyone is told to go back to their dorms, but the boys rush to warn Hermione about the danger. Turns out the troll is making his way into the girls' bathroom because he doesn't conform to gender norms, which just goes to show that JK was telling us a long time ago her thoughts on non-biological women going into girls' spaces. Hermione is confronted by the beast who looks like Shrek if his parents were siblings. Harry gets up on its shoulders, and as it swings its club at him, Ron uses the levitation spell to lift the weapon and drop it on its head. The teachers who were hunting the beast find them, and Harry notices a fresh cut on Professor Snape's leg, which makes him think Snape might have been the one to usher in the troll.
Is it because I'm black?
The head of Gryffindor scolds the 3, and Hermione loses 5 points for intolerance towards a female-identifying creature, while Harry and Ron gain 5 each.
For sheer dumb luck.
The next day, Harry prepares for his first Quidditch match, and after noticing Snape is limping, he voices his suspicion about the professor and the troll, thinking it might have been a diversion to retrieve whatever the 3-headed dog is guarding, which he believes is whatever Hagrid had in his Gringotts vault. It's just like the white kid to blame a future black character for trying to steal.
Severus Snape was black.
Then Harry receives a package which turns out to be a high-end broomstick from Professor McGonagall, which makes sense because he left the girls' bathroom pretty dirty the night before, and that was after the troll incident. Now, if I'd received a broom from this woman, I'd take it as a symbolic gesture that she wanted me to sweep her off her feet. Cut over to the Quidditch pitch where Harry joins his teammates for the first match against Slytherin. As Ryan Reynolds once said,
"It's time to put balls in holes."
Harry's broom gets bored watching the match and it starts to buck him off. Hermione spots Snape muttering magical slurs under his breath and sets his clothes on fire. The broom suddenly starts to work right again, and Gryffindor wins the match after the little gold ball ends up in Harry's mouth. Strange game. In all seriousness, while I think there's a decent bit of fun and plot work done during this section of the film, it's hard to deny that it's starting to feel somewhat long at this point. We're only a little more than halfway through the runtime, and it really seems like the primary plotline is just starting to get off the ground. And while I don't hate the Quidditch aspect altogether, it's not really all that necessary to the story, and frankly, the effects for it have aged pretty poorly. After the match, Potter and company voice their concerns about Snape's racism to Hagrid, and he attempts to quell their fears while accidentally confirming that the three-headed dog is guarding something and that the business of the object in question is between Professor Dumbledore and someone named Nicholas Flamel. The children wonder over who the latter person is, which is a good indication that this story is set in a pre-internet year, as one quick Google search would have shown them that he was a Frenchman who died in the early 15th century.
Well, the story of my interest level is, it's medium.
We come to the Christmas holiday where most of the kids go home, but Harry and Ron spend it at school because their families don't love them. On Christmas morning, Harry receives a sweater from Ron's mother, and then an invisibility cloak so nobody has to see him in it. He hides under it and goes to the library to find information on Nicholas Flamel. Worst Christmas ever. As he searches in the dark, he comes upon Snape accosting Professor Quirrell for his turban, and while it's difficult to hear, I'm pretty sure he responds by pointing out that these will be in style by the 2020s, at least in England. Harry gets away and ends up in a room in front of a mirror which shows him standing with his dead parents. Very morbid. Astonished, he brings Ron to the room later on, and his friend sees himself in it being very popular and accomplished.
Yeah. Like that's ever gonna happen. What a load.
Harry is confused because he actually believed the reflective object was specifically designed to show people his parents. What a narcissistic little wanker. He visits the mirror again a different night, and Dumbledore is there waiting for him, telling him that it's designed to show the looker the thing they desire most. Now at this point, I'm really glad this takes place in a time before the internet, because nowadays, the mirror would basically just be P-Hub on demand. Though if it were me in front of the Mirror of Erised, I'd see all of you liking this video and subscribing to my channel right now while I enjoy a rum punch with you-know-who across my lap.
You're gay.
Wait, no, not that you-know-who. Ah, much better. Sometime after the holidays, the boys are back in the library where Hermione joins them with a book describing Flamel as the maker of the famed Sorcerer's Stone, from which a potion called the Elixir of Life can be extracted and make the drinker immortal. They realize this must be the item guarded by the three-headed dog. They go to Hagrid's that night to tell him that they know about the stone, but he's distracted by an egg he's cooking in a pot. He does so wrong, and out pops a baby dragon. Hagrid spots Draco Malfoy spying outside the window, who then takes off and informs Professor McGonagall of their party. She comes out wearing a saucy nightgown, and all of the children are given detention, including Malfoy, proving to Harry that one can catch a snitch without even using a broom. Now, unlike most schools who make their students sit quietly and maybe copy lines, the Hogwarts method of detention turns out to be going outside at night with Hagrid, which is weird because that's what all of them were punished for in the first place. Also, they must venture into the Forbidden Forest with him to track down an injured unicorn. This is a very strange disciplinary system. Weren't they told at the beginning of the school year that this place was out of bounds? That's like telling a tax evader that he's been sentenced to a jewel heist. They split into two teams, with Hermione and Ron going with Hagrid, while Harry and Draco get to take Hagrid's dog Fang. Would it have really been too difficult to ask another adult to come along? The latter duo eventually finds the unicorn, which is lying dead while a hooded figure drinks its blood. Malfoy runs, and the figure floats toward Harry like a shadow of Yarnum. Fortunately, he is rescued by Phoebe Waller-Bridge's cousin. Horseman tells Harry that unicorn blood has the ability to keep the drinker alive, but curses them in the process.
He could only have gotten that idea from Benjamin Netanyahu.
Harry realizes that only a My Little Pony fan or someone like Voldemort would be willing to do this, and that he, therefore, must be after the Sorcerer's Stone for its similar effects. He He tells this to his friends later that night, but Hermione reassures him that Dumbledore will keep him safe. Harry, however, realizes later on that whoever sold Hagrid the dragon egg must have tricked him, and this is confirmed when the big man says the seller was interested in the three-headed dog.
I would trust Hagrid with my life.
That now seems ill-advised. So much for Dumbledore keeping them safe. The kids rush to see McGonagall, just as I would, saying they need to see Dumbledore, but she informs them that he is away on urgent business. They try to warn her that somebody is going to try and steal the stone, but she assures them that it's safe and they are dismissed. They run into Snape, and the encounter does little to quell Harry's suspicions, as he believes Dumbledore's absence gives Snape the perfect opportunity to take the stone that night. The gang decides to go down the trap door and stop him, though it's unclear what their plan is once they've entered or how long they're willing to keep doing it. Like, if their presence were actually enough to halt the thief that evening, wouldn't they need to keep doing it every night until Dumbledore returned? All the same, I am glad that once the Quidditch stuff is out of the way, the plot picks up momentum and the movie does a fairly solid job of building up toward Harry and the gang's decision to confront who they think is the villain, as well as the magnitude of the potential danger should they fail, as Voldemort's return would signify a revival of the fearful and deadly period before his defeat. As they make to leave their dorm, Neville Longbottom is waiting and says he'll stop them so they won't get Gryffindor into trouble again.
Wait a minute.
We know he wasn't there to overhear their plans, so how many nights has he been waiting outside their rooms? Hermione hits Neville with the hard charm, and they leave him lying there like a corpse. When they get to the trap door, the dog is already asleep because of an enchanted harp. They move the creature's paw, and just as they're about to go through the door, something white and gooey drips on Ron's shoulder.
Brother, that's disgusting.
That must have been a really good song. The beast attempts to attack the children, but they get through the door and fall onto a bed of vines called Devil's Snare. It tries to wrap them up, but Hermione instructs her friends to just relax and let it happen. The same lesson many a modern teacher has given to her teenage students.
You see how this looks, right?
Harry listens, and the two of them end up safe on the other side, but Ron continues to struggle to maintain his dignity. Hermione fires sunlight at the plant, and rather than being strengthened by photosynthesis, it goes limp and Ron is saved. Hopefully that plant ends up on the necessary registries. Next, they enter a room filled with flying creatures and a broom floating closer to the ground. Clearly, the task here is for Hermione to sweep up the droppings like a good young lady, but instead, Harry flies up and catches the one with the broken wing. Turns out to be a flying key. They unlock the door and it takes them to a space where they are blocked from crossing the room by large chess pieces that resemble something out of Dark Souls. Praise the sun, it's time for a chess montage. Bobby Fischer would be absolutely torqued right now. Ron sacrifices himself and Harry proceeds down a stairway to the final stage. Much to his shock, he is met by Professor Quirrell.
It's you! It's you! How could you?
JK tried to warn you, England. Never trust a man in a turban. Harry, still surprised it's not the future Black character, learns Professor Snape was trying to protect him all along. Quirrell reveals that he let the troll into the school, tried to curse Harry's broomstick, and that he's thirsty for more unicorn. At this point, it would be pretty good for Harry to stand in front of a normal mirror and reflect on his personal prejudices. But Quirrell instead makes him stand before the magical one, and he sees himself holding the stone, which then somehow transports itself into his pocket. Does this mean his parents were in his pocket earlier in the movie?
That's weird.
Harry lies about what he sees, and a voice tells Quirrell he wishes to speak to the boy. The teacher removes his turban, and it turns out he has a tumor which is possessed by the spirit of Voldemort. It's kind of like that sentient boil on that one kid's face in Fairly Odd Parents.
Silence, you fool!
Though in this form he has a nose, so in that sense it's sort of an upgrade. Voldemort discerns that the stone must be in Harry's pocket and orders his minion to get the rock, but instead, he gets these hands. Turns out Harry is the carrier of some kind of Delta variant monkeypox, and it causes Quirrell to dissolve into a pile of ash. The spirit of Voldemort gets away and leaves Harry on the ground, stone still in hand. He wakes up in the infirmary sometime later and finds gifts and fan mail from fellow students, and receives a visit from the headmaster. He's informed that his friends are okay, but that the Sorcerer's Stone has been destroyed and that Nicholas Flamel will die. Dumbledore then says that Quirrell couldn't stand to touch Harry because of his mother's love for him. So if you ever find yourself being touched by someone who doesn't dissolve into ash, now you know your parents don't love you. The last day of school arrives and Dumbledore announces that it is time to award the House Cup. Gryffindor comes in last place with Slytherin winning, but then the headmaster counts some last-minute 2 a.m. points, 170 of them all for Gryffindor, who ekes out a victory and claims the prize. Easily the most fair and honest House Cup competition in the school's history. The kids get on a train and Harry waves goodbye to Hagrid, but before he leaves, his large friend suggests using threats of magical violence against his cousin. And on that ominous note, the movie ends. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone was and is nothing short of a global phenomenon. It is the best-selling book series of all time and one of the most successful franchises in cinema history. And while there certainly is some casting controversy for the upcoming TV series,
Severus Snape was black.
Don't be surprised if it experiences similar success. When it was first released in 2001, it was the highest-grossing film in a year which included The Fellowship of the Ring. That might be something of a travesty, but it's hard not to at least appreciate a time when the fantasy genre was perhaps at the apex of its popularity and overall quality. While I do not hold this movie in nearly as high regard as any of Peter Jackson's adaptations of Tolkien, I still think the first Harry Potter film is a pretty strong adaptation and fun movie overall. It certainly has a good number of writing flaws, much like its source material, and some of the special effects have aged about as well as celebrity plastic surgery. But it does a solid job of introducing a good number of plot mechanics that are at least mostly consistent. It's also well cast and pretty well acted. Even the 3 primary child actors, while they were still learning how to blend line delivery and believable emotion, still do a good job overall and were a charming screen presence both together and individually. And issues aside, the story is a lot of fun. Its presentation of school life still manages to make one properly nostalgic for those early years where you were first making friends, struggling with class, dealing with bullies, or trying to learn dark rituals to use on your family and/or enemies. Despite some dated elements, the movie holds up quite well as a fairly timeless piece of entertainment, and is a landmark in the fantasy genre.
I think it's brilliant.
Thanks for watching, Gourds and Gals. What are your thoughts on the Harry Potter movies? Would you like to see more videos on the series? If so, comment below. I hope you had yourself some fun, and I'll see you again soon. Until then, God bless and Gourd speed.